Hello and welcome to another FPL video from Fantasy Football Scout. Today we've got a first draft video. Now we haven't done one of these since the fixtures have released. Obviously we did a couple before fixtures were around, but things changed a lot once the fixtures were announced. And today I'm joined by Gianni. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, mate. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, it's good. How you find it with the fixture? Did you find it easier to make a squad once the fixtures were out?
Yeah, I did. Do you know, I didn't actually want to spend too much time creating my team until I saw the fixtures. Of course, I had a rough idea and I had a few placeholders in for opposite price points, but it was all on the fixtures for me. And yeah, my team looks completely different.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think it was the same for me. I had a rough idea of some of the players I wanted, but that quickly changed once the fixtures were out. So yeah, we're just going to jump straight into it. We're going to go through the Game Week 1 team, and then Gianni already has some plans for by Game Week 3 to ship in a couple of Man United and Man City players, which we'll talk about in a sec. But I'm going to bring the Game Week 1 team up first. So you've gone for a bit of a 4-4-2. I'm noticing a lot of cheap bench players. Johnson for West Ham. To be fair, I haven't seen mentioned very much, but every time I don't mention him on YouTube, a lot of people do say to me, keep an eye on him. A lot of West Ham fans seem to think this could be the year that he starts. Obviously Ferguson as well, a lot of reliance on him. And then a cheapie in kind of Justin, Brewster and Anguissa as well. So talk us through the defence, right? You've got one Liverpool defender. Last year, double Liverpool defence was all the rage. But this year, I'm seeing a lot more people put Doherty in the team. What's the thinking behind that?
Do you know, last year I saw everyone doing the double, some even the triple, and I went against that and only had Trent. I think I had Trent and Salah as my two Liverpool assets at the start of last season. It worked quite well. When Liverpool were shipping goals early on, I was actually almost celebrating those goals, knowing I didn't have the double up. And looking at their fixtures again, I'm keen to swerve the double or triple up at the back for Liverpool. Early on in the season, I am. Later in the year, I'm sure there'll be a time when I do go towards the double up. But when you look at that first wave of fixtures for Liverpool, I can't see a huge amount of clean sheets versus Leeds, Chelsea, Arsenal, Villa, Everton as their first 5 games. So I'm happy on the one. And, you know, of course, Trent isn't in our teams for just clean sheet points. He's in our teams for attacking returns. So I'm very happy with just him. And then I like complementing him with Doherty. I'm really surprised Doherty's not featured in more and more teams. And I think because so many have got Vinagre in their teams, they think they've got the Wolves cover. Therefore, they don't need to spend the extra 1.5. And up until last week, I had Vinagre and Doherty. I'm settled now, I think, with just the one Wolves wing back. And that's purely because I think they will invest in that left back area. So I'm keen. I think Vinagre is a transfer waiting to happen. And whilst he might play in game week 1 because the new signing, whoever that will be, Gullum, Maitland-Niles, we don't know, someone else, we just don't know how long he's going to last in that team. And I don't think he'll be there for the long term. Doherty, however, is there for the long term and he'll always get you attacking returns. He's a must, but must have is a very strong word. But for me, he's one of my go-to, one of my favourites. He served me really well post-lockdown. Doherty and Trent will be mainstays in my team this season. The other 3 might come in and out. And when you look at the team, you see a lot of enablers and it looks a little bit weak in terms of squad. It looks strong in terms of big hitters. I've got 7 premiums if you count the 2 lads at the back, which is probably 1 or 2 more premiums than the average team. But it does mean I've got a fair few enablers that I won't be expecting much from. The key for these enablers for me is that they're 90-minute men. And at the moment, we just don't know if Ferguson, if Johnson, even Justin, when of course Pereira will be back eventually, we don't know how many minutes these guys are going to get. But that's why the next few weeks and pre-season scouting is so important. And on Tuesday, the time of recording this, Palace and West Ham are both due to play in a pre-season friendly. So I'll be really watching those guys to see where Johnson plays, where Ferguson plays, who gets more minutes. Over the course of pre-season, we should be able to work out if they're starters. I'm slightly more confident on Ferguson than I am on Johnson. I think I'm probably 60% confident Ferguson will start game week 1 and probably 51% certain Johnson will. I think it's a toss of a coin between Johnson and Fredericks for that right back spot at West Ham.
I think a lot of people, I've got Ferguson in myself, of course. A lot of people, I think, are also relying on him because I've seen some plans where Man United players are in from the start and so they need someone to play, and a lot of people are relying on Ferguson being that man because although he's playing Danny Ings, it's not the worst fixture to start off with. You're okay probably playing him against Southampton at home. You don't have any money in the bank, right? So do you have... What if Ferguson and Johnson aren't playing? Like, do you have like a rough idea of how you're going to get a bit more money to upgrade? Are you even going to bother upgrading?
Yeah, so I've got 0.5 in the bank, and I always try off the back of a wild card or the start of the season, try and keep 0.5 in the bank. But the 0.5 has been reserved for my first set of transfers. But then for game week 2, when I think I'll use that 0.5 when Son goes to Rashford. But then game week 3, when I downgrade Aubameyang to KDB, I think I'll get that 0.5 back and invest that in one of my defenders. So there's a good chance, right, that Ferguson, potentially Justin or Johnson won't be a starter, and that 0.5 will be used to sell one of those guys, upgrade to a 4.5 or a 5 in Justin's case, to have a steady 90-minute man there. So the 0.5 will be used to reinvest in the defence for sure.
Cool. And let's just touch on that then, because you just mentioned it there. Plans are Rashford in game week 2 for Son. Have you got any kind of desire, maybe now, it would depend on the first game, to just keep Son? Because it's not like Spurs fixtures aren't bad either. Obviously, Man United are great. Or do you think, with Man United and Man City, do you think it's foolish to not have a plan to bring them in?
Do you know what? I really do. When we look, I always think of FPL as being a really simple game. And I always try and start building my team by identifying the teams that score the most goals and ideally have their best player, right? So cover all the teams that score the most goals. And if we're going without Man United and Man City players, we're taking away 2 of the teams that score the most goals. And for me, having United cover with that set of fixtures they've got, knowing they were scoring goals for fun post-lockdown, I think we're missing a trick if we're not looking at how to bring in a Man United asset just because they blank in game week 1. Until yesterday, I had Rashford in my team and I had him on the bench, but I just thought my starting 11 for game week 1 looked a little bit weak. So the obvious transfer out was Rashford to Son, knowing I'll bring him in. But I'm not worried at all about not having Spurs cover moving forward. Even if Son goes and scores a brace, I just don't think this Mourinho team is going to score a huge amount of goals. I need to see more from them to know that I'm going to go with a Kane or a Son. You know, that's a lot of money investing in a Kane or a Son, which could be invested in a Man City or United asset that we know are far more reliable in terms of goal scoring. Yes, Kane looked great towards the end of the season. He's playing as the number 9, and ideally I would love Kane over Son for game week 1, but I just can't stretch there. But moving forward, we need to see a consistent run of games from Mourinho to know that this team are going to score more than 1 or 2 each week.
Yeah, fair point. And do you think with Rashford, is it the same case? Is he in ahead of Bruno, or is that your thinking currently because of the 1 million saving, or do you just think he can match him anyway? Obviously, Bruno Fernandes got a lot of penalties last year. As some people have rightly pointed out, you can't really predict penalties. Like we got 14 last year, 12 the year before, but only like 4 or 5 the season before that. Yeah. What's the thinking there? Do you think Rashford's good value for 9.5, or is it just a case of you can't stretch to Bruno?
Yeah, if they were the same price, if they were both 9.5, Bruno would be in my team. But it's I can't stretch that extra million. And when you look at my team, because I want to load up on premiums, and I identify it as having 7 premiums if you include Ings, Werner, Doherty, and Trent, I can't make that million saving anywhere. I've penny pinched as much as possible. You can see my £4 million men and a couple of my midfielders. So I can't find that million for Bruno. Looking at the numbers, Rashford's numbers outside of penalties are more attacking, more shots, more goals from open play. His heat maps are really good. I think if United sign a winger, Sancho is looking more unlikely, but whoever they sign will be someone that can play both right and left, which means when Martial is rested as the number 9, we might see Rashford going to that role, and therefore the winger who comes in taking Rashford's space at times, because there's going to be so many games. Martial isn't going to play 60, 70 starts next season, which could be the number of games United end up having. So I really like Rashford for that. Of course, the 1 million is a big deal for me, and I can't quite stretch to Bruno. The penalties is a massive appeal for Bruno, but as you said, Andy, it's that level of penalties isn't going to be sustainable. That's not going to last forever. So we might see evenly matched for points. I wouldn't be surprised to see if they end on very similar points. You know, if Rashford edges it, I wouldn't be surprised either. So it's a bit scary going without Bruno, knowing his ownership's so high, but you've got to play your own game. And I think we'll probably start game week 2 with Rashford at around 10% ownership and Bruno at 40% ownership.
Absolutely,
but yeah. I'm willing to take that risk, I think.
Yeah, no, fair enough. We're seeing similar things with Sterling and De Bruyne as well. So at some point, you can't have them all. Like, I know we say it every season, but you just can't. Without sticking to the kind of Man United point too much, just one more question on it for you. A lot of people are doing this. So obviously they've got a plan to bring in a Man United player, a plan to bring in a Man City player. Most of the time, it's Man United game week 2, Man City game week 3, given the fixtures. Do you have any concerns that there might be other players you want? Because every single season, obviously I don't know who it is yet. If I did, I'd be a genius. But every single season there is a player or 2 or 3 that suddenly has started in game week 1, which we weren't expecting. They've absolutely nailed game week 1 and scored loads of points we weren't expecting. Maybe they're a winger, now they're playing up front. Whatever it might be, there's always a few of these players. And obviously you and other people as well are booking in transfers already for the first 2 game weeks. Is there any worries about that, or would you just be prepared to start taking hits as it's needed? Or wildcard?
Yeah. I mean, that is why so many are forced into early wildcards, isn't it? No one plans to use their wildcard in game week 2 or 3, but so many do because there's that wish list of, oh, he's done well in game week 1. But I would also say, don't get too carried away. You know, yeah, some bandwagons are there to be jumped on, but others really are just, you know, a trap. They've had one good week. Everyone will have one. It's the concern for me isn't a player going and scoring a brace or a hat-trick and me going, I want them. It's a player that we've discovered that is a £4 million defender that everyone now wants. A bit like Lundstrom last year, or an out-of-position player that you go, okay, he's going to become a must-have. I need to jump on him now because his price is only going to rise. So yeah, if that happens and I feel strongly about the player, I wouldn't shy away from that 4-point hit. I mean, the other option I've got is, of course, I've mentioned I want United cover. I mentioned that ideally, I'd have Bruno, but I'm very happy with Rashford. The other option I can do is if I need the money, you know, I could go down to a Greenwood for my United cover. And then, you know, I'm selling Son to Greenford. I'm banking 2.5 or whatever it is, 1.5, but I've got 0.5 in the bank. So I have 2 million to upgrade any of my players. So I can still jump on a bandwagon. And, you know, if it means a 4-point hit come game week 3, I'd be willing to take them. I try and keep my hits to a minimum, but, you know, to jump on an early price rise or a bandwagon is sometimes key.
Yeah, especially if you get to avoid using wildcard as well, because I'm not like, I'm one of those people, I'm not against using my wildcard early. I've done it plenty of times over 10 seasons, but I also don't like booking it in for the sake of it. Especially, it's a weird time at the moment, obviously, in general, and we've got weird winter breaks coming up. We've got to use the wildcard early. I just feel like it's probably something that should be maybe saved. Looking around the rest of the team, there's kind of, I think, 3 things that stick out. Let's talk about Matt Ritchie first. I've got to be honest, I don't even know his price. I know most people play his price. What price? Is he 5.5? Is he?
No, he's 5.
Oh, wow,
5.
okay.
Annoyingly, he's a midfielder this year. You know, obviously Matt Ritchie was listed as a defender last year, and you might remember from our Scoutcast match days, I'm a big fan of Matt Ritchie, and I had him in my team at 5. The fear is that he plays wing back again, and if he does, he'll be out my team. However, and this is a big however, Steve Bruce moved to a back 4 towards the end of last year to good effect, playing a 4-2-3-1. And I think it was game week 36 and 37. And obviously Danny Rose coming in massively helped this. Danny Rose, your left back. Matt Ritchie played in, I think, game week 36 and 37, both in that 3 behind the forward, the number 9. So the 3 players there, Almiron and St. Maximin, are nailed. Ritchie, I think, will become nailed as well this season if Bruce keeps the faith with the 4-2-3-1. If he goes to a back 5, I'll be concerned. They also don't have a left back at the moment. That's also another issue. Last year they had Willems, they had Rose, both on loan. They've both gone back to their parent clubs, and there's talk that either of them could come back to Newcastle on a permanent deal. If they do, I'll be very happy. Newcastle need to sign a left back, or Ritchie will end up in that slot. If he doesn't, I think at 5 million playing on the left of an attacking 4, I think he's a great option. He's on set pieces. He has been on pens in the past. And at 5 million, there aren't too many. You know, Soyak, if he had good fixtures, I did have. But, you know, outside of that, there's not too many. There's not too many at 5 or under that are attacking players, you know, especially when you look in that 4.5 bracket. They're all defensive midfielders, which is why, again, I've gone Frank Risa at the hope that if he plays, at least I think he'll be playing in the number 8 role, as he did at Villarreal last year. So yeah, that's my thought. When I go for budget midfielders, I want them to ideally be reliable, be 90-minute men, but also I want them to be attacking if possible.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, you're right. He did play way more advanced towards the end of the season. So if that continues, it could be good. I've completely overlooked him at 5 million. I think that's not a bad price. You're right. There's not many options there. Like Souček is really the one. Like Højbjerg at Spurs, but I just don't think you're going to get many attacking returns there. So I think maybe that's a good shout. That I don't think I've seen in any draft. So it's nice to have something a bit different as well. And to be fair, I've done this in the past where I've had Atsu at 5 million. I think it was. Obviously, you're not relying on massive points from there every week, but they enable you to do better points or better price points elsewhere. So you've got Son, Aubameyang, Salah, Werner, and Ings. Like that's a lot of money spent elsewhere, and Ritchie obviously enables you to do that. Let's talk about Werner. You're a Chelsea fan. You've signed every single player under the sun. Like before Werner was signed, everyone was saying, he's not necessarily number 9. He can play off the striker. He can play on the left. Right, which is fine, but obviously that's where Pulisic played last year. Where do you think he fits in? Like let's say Havertz signs as well. Do you think Abraham is just dropped, never to be seen again? Like how is Lampard, or is it just going to be loads of rotation, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess next season, like no other, we'll see more games in a short amount of time. So squad depth is going to be so important. So whilst I don't think Tammy or Giroud will be first choice, I think we'll still see those guys. If you're Batshuayi, you're thinking I'm just never going to get a minute. I'm sure he'll be out on loan. But I really don't know where Werner's going to play. Like ideally, he plays off a striker, and we saw at Leipzig him playing in a 2-man attack or 3 on the left, but playing off a big man if possible. But, unless Giroud or Tammy is going to be a starter in those important games as first choice, which I don't think he will be, then we could see Werner as a number 9 with Pulisic to the left of him, Ziyech to the right of him. That could be a really impressive front 3. It's not physical, it's not tall, it doesn't look like a typical Premier League sort of front 3, but it's very skillful, very quick. The high press is something we know Frank likes. The likes of Werner and Ziyech will run for fun. When you just look at his goals and the fact that Werner's on penalties, or probably will be on penalties unless Jorginho is in the starting 11. Obviously, Jorginho, first choice penalty taker, Willian, second choice, he's now gone. Jorginho might be out of favour next season. I think he will be if he's even at the club. I think Werner on penalties and will surely get goals from open play. I'm expecting him to hit the ground running more than any of the other Chelsea signings. I've also liked the fact that he's had a nice summer break, but not too much of a break. Like Ziyech, for example, worries me because he's had 6 months without football by the time game week 1 starts. Werner's had a nice summer break. He came to Chelsea just at the end of the season, so I think he's had a few training sessions at the end of the year, and now, of course, he's back training again. So he'll feel quite settled. I think he'll make a big impact.
Yeah, I
just don't know what role it's going to be in.
Yeah, I'm kind of he's one of the locks in my team pretty much. I've kind of talked myself into that. I'm the same with Ziyech. Obviously, a long time out. Like I don't want to say that one league is worse than the other, but I just feel like Werner coming from the Bundesliga with those kind of numbers versus Ziyech coming from the Dutch league. I don't know. I want to see something from him first. But obviously, for those of you people that have got him, 8 million is obviously a nice price. But yeah, he's been out for so long. Just be interested to see he hits the ground running. I'm just a bit worried, not worried about Chelsea. I think they're exciting because they're going to score so many goals this year. It's just nailing the right player. Like if Havertz comes in, what does that mean for Mason Mount? Because he was Lampard's boy last year. I mean, obviously, like you said, squad rotation is a thing. We see it from Man City. Teams are going to have to do it this year, and Chelsea are going to be in a great position. But do you think if Havertz comes in, that it's going to be just basically a fight for Mount to try and get back in the team? Because obviously, a few people are looking at him because he's only 7 million.
Yeah, I mean, we could see a really attacking lineup, which sees Kante as your kind of defensive mid, and then 2 pivot 8s in Havertz and Mount. And we did see towards the end of last season, Mount playing in a midfield 3 way more than a front 3. And I do think that's where his future lies, in that midfield 3. It's just, is it too attacking to have a front 3 of Werner, Ziyech and Pulisic? And then the 3 behind, yes, you've got Kante, but you've got 2 very attack-minded players in Havertz and Mount. But I do think Frank could do that against weaker opposition. Oh, and then you add to that a back 4, which has got 2 very attacking fullbacks, whoever that will be, because we know Frank likes, high fullbacks. So it does look like an all-out attack. And I do think, I'll be shying away from probably Chelsea defenders, even with the investment that they're having at the back, because I do think the way they will set up, we've seen how Frank wants to play. It's fun football. It's attacking, free-flowing football. So that makes me think you have to cover Chelsea going forward. And one that I think will be one of the first names on the team sheet, one of the reliable players, is of course Werner, which is why he's there. But I do think Mount will still be picked. I think there'll always be an injury somewhere. So even if it isn't a lineup that I've spoken about, even if it's Kovacic and Kante in the middle, you can bet your bottom dollar that either Ziyech or Pulisic, one of them will have been rotated or have a niggle. Pulisic is often injured. That I do think Mount will still be a mainstay in that team. And at 7 million, he offers good FPL value too.
Cool, good stuff. Yeah, I'm really, I hate to say I'm really excited about Chelsea. If Pulisic is fit to start the season, which I don't know if he will be, and whether he would have had enough pre-season minutes, we'll have to wait and see. If he's fit, I'm really tempted to double up him and Werner, but we'll have to wait and see on pre-season minutes. Let's just finish off with two other players. So Danny Ings, 8.5. Again, not seen him in a huge amount of teams. Obviously did so well last year. 8.5 million is a fair price. I guess question on him is, do you think he can do it again? And are you worried about injuries at all with him? And lastly, you've got Brewster. Is he in there because you're hoping that he moves? Because obviously you lock him in, that's a Liverpool spot gone. So you're just hoping he moves?
Yeah, and I am confident he will move. I'd be surprised if Liverpool hold on to him, knowing the depth they've got. He's going to struggle to go ahead of, say, the likes of Origi on the bench, or as that sort of first attacking sub or number 9 replacement for Firmino. So I'm hopeful Brewster does get his move. If he doesn't, then he will be gone. And I'll bring someone else in. Although there aren't any other 4.5s that you think might get a game. If Brewster goes to an Aston Villa, you'd expect him to get some game time. But Danny Ings, yeah, again, I'm really surprised I've not seen him in loads of drafts. When you look at his returns last year, I see no reason why he can't replicate that. I also look at Southampton and think he was in a team last year that for the first half of the season were pretty poor. It was only after that 9-0 versus Leicester Southampton started playing. And when you look at the second half of the season stats from Southampton, they were brilliant. And, even post-lockdown, I thought, that's safe. They'll be on the beach. But no, Hudson Huntel from game week 30 still had them playing. And Ings, of course, we know was chasing the golden boot. He's going to fancy his chances to get in the England squad for the Euros. I think that's going to come at a very good time for Danny Ings. So no, he was, again, is one of the players my team's I'm going to tinker with my team. I'd like to say it's fixed, but I know I'll see things, transfers. I'll see some of the pre-season games and I'll tinker. I'd be very surprised if I sell Danny Ings. I think at 8.5, he still offers really good value. He's again at that price point, which means if I do need to, bring in Jimenez, it's a very easy side, move for price points. And again, if I need to upgrade to an Aguero or Kane, it's not too difficult, to go there from Ings. But I really like Southampton's fixtures. The only thing I'd say about Ings when comparing him with Jimenez is, from what we know, Ings isn't on penalties. Ward-Prowse was on them at the end of the season. Saying that, I think Ward-Prowse missed a couple. So maybe we could see Danny Ings on penalties as well. I know he missed one last year. But the fixtures, Palace, Spurs, Burnley, West Brom, that's a really nice set of 4 fixtures. So even if he's not in my team long-term, those 4 fixtures, I'm expecting goals in 3 of them for sure for Danny Ings. And I'm seeing a lot of people investing in other Southampton players to try and cover Danny Ings. The likes of Armstrong has been a really popular pick. And I see why he's 5.5. But I don't think Armstrong is going to cover Ings's points because, there's Redmond there, there's Ward-Prowse there. It's not like all of the assists will come from a guy like Armstrong, who again is another person that plays 70 minutes time and again. He's always subbed off. Redmond plays 90, but I'm just looking for players in my squad that are reliable, not first name on the team sheet for their teams, but kind of almost the go-to for the manager and reliable 90-minute men. And Ings is one of those. He'll play 90 every week, if fit, of course. But, they don't have European football, so it's not like a Jamie Vardy, for example, who I'd be concerned. He's going to have more fixtures than ever before with the Europa League and the Prem. Ings has just got the Prem and, the domestic competitions.
Yeah, very convincing. That I must admit. It's not like I've not thought about having Ings at all, because of course I have, especially after the amount of goals he had last year. But he hasn't really kind of stuck to many of my drafts yet. I am actually looking at Vardy, but obviously Europa League is a little bit of a concern. But the fixtures for Leicester are so good to start off with. I'm tempted to start there and maybe go down. But yeah, I think that's a really nice team, really, really well thought out. And obviously Aubameyang to De Bruyne and Son to Rashford is kind of set in for now for game week 2 and 3, but obviously things can change. So thanks very much for running through that with us today. Much appreciated.
No worries. Good to, yeah, very glad to share my team. I'm not sure how much tinkering. I'd love to say it's fixed, but I'm sure I'll tinker and potentially try and improve that overall look of the squad. But I do like the amount of premiums and big hits I've got. So yeah, interesting to see how many changes I make in the next fortnight.
Yeah, it will be. I think everyone appreciates that. Everyone's tinkering. You're not a proper FPL manager if you're not tinkering with your team right up until game week 1. Just before we go, I will quickly say we do have a Fantasy Football Scout premium members offer on at the moment. So on the 31st of August, the price is going to go back up to £20. Right now it's £17.50. So if you want to get in now, if you're thinking about doing it, make sure to do that before the 31st of August. There's a link in the description below for membership. You can see on screen everything you get. There's loads of benefits, loads of great articles, comparison tools, stats tables, Opta stats, all this stuff. So if you want to check that out, make sure you do. Link in the description below. Like I said, before the 31st of August, it is on offer. Otherwise, I'll say thanks very much, Gianni, and I'll see you again soon.
Good stuff. See you guys.
Cheers all.